Dear students, this is Dr. Pooja Thakkar from Inside Biology. We are in the 10th session of human reproduction. In the last session, we have discussed regarding the oogenesis and the structure of ovum. Here, we need to discuss regarding the two different conditions which is occurring in a female body. If the fertilization happens, that will lead to pregnancy, and if the fertilization won't occur, that will lead to menstruation. Now, first we need to discuss regarding fertilization. Fertilization is basically a meeting of sperm and egg that will lead to formation of a diploid zygote, as the sperm and egg is basically haploid in nature. The mixing of maternal as well as paternal chromosomes from sperm and egg will take place to form 23 pairs of chromosome in a diploid zygote. Now, this particular event during the sexual intercourse, 200 to 300 millions of sperms get deposited in the female vagina, which is termed as insemination. These motile sperms swim rapidly through the cervix area, which is the narrow and constricted region just at the finishing edge of the vagina, towards the uterus, till it will reach to the isthmus ampullary junction, which is comparatively a bit larger or wider area for the fertilization process. Fine. Now it only occurs when the sperms and secondary oocyte at the end of oogenesis we have discussed in the last session. So it only occurs when sperms and secondary oocyte reach at the particular junction. This is isthmus ampullary junction simultaneously. If both are coming together, then only the event will take place. This secondary oocyte gets surrounded by many sperms at a time, but only one sperm will enter into the oocyte. Now, the important note you need to remember here is the secretions from female vaginal area or the overall genital tract make the sperm or male sperm more capable for the fertilization process is called capacitation process. Now, at the end of this particular process, the sperm will be considered as capacitized sperm. The capacitized sperm releases sperm lysine, or you can say hyaluronidase, which is the enzyme from the acrosomal region or the tip region of the sperm to digest the corona radiata cells as well as the zona pellucida layer which surrounds the oocyte. The oocyte membrane now become impervious, or you can say impermeable, for the entry of other sperms after the entry of single sperm inside. Fine. Now this secondary oocyte fused with sperm accomplish the meiosis 2, as we have discussed earlier that the particular secondary oocyte has been formed at the end of meiosis 1, and that will halt the process of meiosis 2 until the entry of sperm. So here we are discussing the same point again, that is when the secondary oocyte fused with sperm, that will accomplish meiosis 2 and thus form the mature ovum and second polar body. The polar body's importance we have already discussed. The most important reason to form polar body is to maintain the haploidy of a particular ovum. The fusion of male and female pronuclei then takes place, each of those which continues with 23 numbers of chromosomes, that is haploid in nature. Now mixing of those chromosomes, 23 from mother and 23 from father, sperm as well as egg, form the mixing, that is amphimixis process, that will lead to formation of zygote with 23 pairs of chromosomes, and the zygote is diploid, that is 2n, having 46 numbers of total chromosomes. Now we need to discuss regarding what the zygote exactly contains. So based on that we can do sex determination process. If the male gamete is carrying X chromosome or Y chromosome depending upon the sperm utilized here. We have discussed these things in the previous sessions, that male gametes are formed at the end of spermatogenesis, which are basically 4 in numbers at the end of meiosis 2. They might be carrying X chromosome or Y chromosome. So overall we can consider that male gamete or sperm is having 22 autosomes plus the sex chromosome, single sex chromosome, which may have X chromosome or Y chromosome. And the female gamete, which is ovum, due to the double X situation, double X chromosome situation in female, it will be always carrying X chromosome in its ovum. So it will be definitely having 22 autosomes plus 1 X chromosomes. Fine. So there are two possibilities of different kinds of chromosomes which are coming from male, but there is a single probability of or a variant, that is X chromosome, from female. So zygote might contain XX situation after fusion or XY situation based upon the sperm which is carrying either X chromosome or Y chromosome. Fine. So if two X are fused together, it will form a female child, while when the one X and one Y chromosome will fuse together, it will form a male child. The sex of child has been determined only by father and not at all by mother. Now we need to discuss regarding the embryonic development. Once the zygote formation has been accomplished, then in the later stages they'll get developed, they'll get more mature to form a developed condition that is termed as embryo developmental process. So zygote after 30 hours of fertilization undergoes series of multiplication, that is basically now mitotic divisions, because we do not need any kind of gametes now. The gamete formation and the fusion of gamete, that is fertilization, that has been already occurred. Now we are just focusing on mitotic division, that is multiplication phase. So for that, each cell has to undergo cleavage process to generate 2, simultaneously 4, then 8, then 16, then multiple numbers of daughter cells. Those daughter cells will be then considered as blastomeres. When the 8 cell stage comes, that is considered as morula, which will be like a little mulberry shape, which will divide more and transformed into a major structure called blastocyst. Now the blastocyst is basically having the boundary of cells on the outermost area, which is considered as trophoblast, as you can see in the diagram, and the inner cells will be then considered as inner cell mass or ICM. So blastocyst is a hollow ball of cells. The outermost layer will be trophoblast, that will form placenta in the later stages, and the inner layer is inner cell mass or ICM, that will form embryo. Then this particular blastocyst, from the 6th day onwards, or you can say after the fertilization, from 6th day to the following 10th day, these 4 days are basically responsible for the attachment of this blastocyst into the endometrium of uterus, and that particular process is then termed as implantation. So implantation is the attachment of blastocyst in the endometrium of uterus. It will take place from the 6th day following ovulation and completed at the 10th day on the inner wall of uterus, that is endometrium. It can get attached to any of the wall, either on the left side or on the right side of the endometrial wall, to make further progression. These trophoblast cells now secrete proteolytic enzyme that will erode the wall of endometrium and the blood vessels which has been previously developed to give nourishment as well as establishment of the pregnancy. So this particular trophoblast will erode the wall of endometrium, and that will get embedded in the innermost area of uterus. Now the zona pellucida, which is the outermost coating of the zygote, that will play a very important role for the implantation, as it prevents the improper implantation, or you can say that will prevent the implantation of blastocyst at the abnormal site in the uterus, so that it can prevent the ectopic pregnancy. When blastocyst reaches to the proper site in the uterine cavity, this particular zona pellucida will then get disappeared, because now it is no more needed. Now the placenta formation will occur. Those structures will be basically developed from the trophoblast layer of the embryo. They are the finger-like projections as we have discussed earlier. They can also be considered as chorionic villi on the trophoblast layer. You can see that particular structure in this diagram, right? The trophoblast is basically playing an important role for the structure formation, that is chorionic villi or villi-like structure formation, which will be very helpful in the implantation process. Now they'll get surrounded by the uterine tissue and maternal blood, obviously. Then the placenta is then considered as a combination of chorionic villi as well as the uterine tissue. It is basically serving as the main and significant site, as this is the structural and functional unit between the developing embryo as well as the maternal body. So it will facilitate the exchange of material inside the fetal cells or embryo, and it is also serving as the site to reduce or to excrete the waste outside the embryo towards maternal body. So you can say it will facilitate the oxygen and nutrient from maternal body towards the embryo, which is a very beneficial process, and that will collect carbon dioxide as well as waste produced by embryo towards the maternal blood for the excretion. You can see the detailed labels in this particular diagram, in which you will be able to notice a purple color structure, which is placenta, the yellow colored yolk sac, into which the green cavity, which is filled with amniotic fluid, into which the baby is there. The chorion has been created, which is basically responsible for chorionic villi formation, the extended finger-like projections. The fluid-filled amniotic cavity is termed as amnion, into which you will be able to notice umbilical cord, through which the particular exchange, as we have discussed, the transport of material inside or outside will take place. This is the enlarged view of umbilical cord with the arteries as well as vein and the placenta, by which you will be able to notice how the exchange of the nutrients from maternal body to the fetus as well as from the fetus excretory products are excreted towards the maternal body. So this particular supply and the contact is very essential to maintain or to establish a proper pregnancy. So which hormones will play a very significant role in the pregnancy? That the first one is HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotrophin, which will stimulate corpus luteum formation for the production of progesterone. As we have discussed earlier in the previous sessions, that progesterone is very, very important to maintain or to sustain pregnancy, as it is mainly focusing on development of blood vessels in the uterus on the endometrium to facilitate the support as well as the nourishment to the developing fetus. At the end of pregnancy, this particular HCG will stimulate the relaxin hormone to facilitate parturition, that is delivery, by the contraction of connective tissue in the pubic region, that is pubic symphysis. The second most important hormone is HPL, that is human placental lactogen, which will help for the growth of mammary glands development or breast enlargement and development for the lactation, to produce milk for the developing fetus, as well as estrogen and progesterone. At the end, we need to discuss regarding gastrulation. Once the basic structure has been formed, the trophoblast has formed the villi, which has the contact with the maternal body now. So it is getting the nourishment easily. But now the inner cell mass, which has potential to give rise all the kinds of tissues and organs of a baby. So for that, it will form 3 different germ layers. The outermost will be considered as ectoderm, that will form the entire nervous system, skin, special senses, and some kind of endocrine glands in the baby. The middle area, which can be considered as mesoderm, that will form the skeletal system, urinary system, circulatory system, and the few parts of reproductive system. And the innermost, which is termed as endoderm, that will form the digestive as well as respiratory system and the few remaining parts of the reproductive system. So reproductive system has been completely formed by the utilization of both the germ layers, that is endoderm as well as mesoderm. Now in this particular table you will be able to notice how the pregnancy in each of the month lead to form varieties of shapes as well as structures in the fetal body. In the first month we will be able to notice obviously the embryo formation, the heart sound of the fetus with stethoscope. The second month will lead to form limbs as well as digits. In the third one, the major organ system has been formed by different germ layers as we have discussed earlier. That will also lead to formation of external genitalia, so by which you will be identify either the fetal body or the fetal baby is male or female. On the fourth month, blood vessel development will basically takes place, that is with the muscle activation. On the fifth month, fetal development has been felt by mother and the hair growth starts on head. On the sixth month, skin gets covered with fine hair, the eyelids will get separate, eyelashes formation will take place, and at the seventh month, the testes, we have discussed in the male reproductive system that the testes of a male will descend out in the scrotum. The scrotal sac formation will take place and the testes will descend out of the body in male. The female body is perfectly ready. And in the ninth month, the baby is perfectly ready to come out in the environment, that is ready for delivery. In the particular figure, you will be able to notice how the blastula leads to formation of gastrula, that is different germ layer formation. The outermost will be ectoderm, the innermost will be considered as endoderm, and the middle yellow colored small cells will be considered as mesoderm. And at the end, after 9th month, the pregnancy period will get over. That period will also be considered as gestation period. At the end of this, vigorous contraction of the uterine muscles will take place to do a delivery process, or that is also termed as expulsion of fetus outside the female body. It is induced by nervous system as well as the coordination with of the endocrine system. The second most important thing is signal is coming from the child itself, that is fetal ejection reflex, or it can also be considered as child ejection reflex from the fully matured fetus as well as the placenta. That will induce mild uterine contraction in the mother. That will trigger the oxytocin production of the female will take place from her own posterior pituitary gland to promote maximum and speedy contraction of the uterus, that is in general terms considered as labor pain. This oxytocin also stimulate milk ejection from the mammary gland once the delivery is finished for the milk production to the just formed or newly formed baby. Oxytocin is helping in two ways. First is it is helping in the delivery process by uterus contraction, vigorous contraction of uterine muscles, and second to eject milk out of the mammary glands. Initial few days milk is considered as colostrum, which is basically thick and yellow, having multiple antibodies that will provide protection as well as a kind of basic immunity to the newborn baby. So this is what all about the fertilization process, how it will takes place, how the growth will happen, how the gestation period occur, how it will sustain, and how it will lead to development of a healthy baby at the end of 9th month of gestation period. But in the second condition, if the fertilization will not occur, that will lead to menstruation, that we will discuss in the next session. Thank you so much. If you like this video, kindly subscribe the channel, that is Inside Biology by Dr. Pooja. Thank you.